Hi and welcome to another episode, and what we've got here is the Retroflag NESPi 4 case, compatible with the Raspberry Pi 4, sort of gives it game away there. As you can read, NESPi 4 case again, don't know why they've put it twice, but it's an SSD case, USB-C power supply. Let's go on to the back, it points out all the different ports and you get the power supply unit. Now I've already done an unboxing of this already in a previous episode, which I'll put a link to there and in the description. But basically you end up with this. Now let's have a look at the size of it compared to the Nintendo Entertainment System Classic. I mean, it looks basically the same, doesn't it? You can see that the sizes are a fair bit different in all cases, no pun intended, but let's line it up at the back and at the side. There we go. Now the colour difference doesn't really show up too much on camera, but this is a lot darker grey than the grey that comes with this. I don't have an original NES to play around with, so I don't know how close the colours are to this, you know, through memory. I've only ever seen one in person a few times in my life. But it's close enough. I mean, it's grey, nothing to cry about. On the front, obviously, we have the power and the reset, which I'll come into later on as well, but there's also a power LED, USB 2 and USB 3, which will come in handy for not just joysticks, and as you can see, they're sort of the other way around because that's how they are. Then we have the micro SD card port. We have two micro HDMIs because that's the way that the Pi is built with the audio. You may have guessed that the Pi sits in this corner. And then we've got extenders to the power, which is USB-C, and an extender to the network. On the bottom we have this little bit of plastic, which is a throwback to the original. You can remove that, but you're supposed to be storing your micro SD cards in there. But really, what you want to be doing is using this to slide this out. Just makes it easier. Let's put that back on the bottom before we lose it. There is only a certain way around, so try to remember which way it is. But here we've got a cartridge, and as you can see, all the way in the back there is the SATA, which it mentioned on the cardboard box in the first place. And I've already been playing around with this and made sure it all worked and took it back to bits again, but I have got in here, if we can open it up, because I haven't actually put screws in yet. Can we do it without damaging everything? There we go. This is the type of drive that I've got. It's an SSD Plus by SanDisk, and it happens to be a terabyte drive. Let's line that all back up again, and I'll put the screws into that later on. Let's leave that there for now. Then what you do, you open up the case, and there's the USB cable for the SATA interface, and its little warning of please remove the SD card before installing the Raspberry Pi, because you've probably been playing around with your Pi, and you know, don't forget to take that out, because when you're sliding it in, you're probably going to damage stuff. So follow the reminder. You get a fan, you get some screws, some thermal pads and a screwdriver, which is always nice, and then full-size HDMI to micro HDMI, and then a couple of shims to go over a couple of chips on the Pi 4. And then as you can see, there's a whole wonderful rat's nest of cables, another USB 3, which is obviously the USB hub for the front. Well, actually it's just a follow through, I think, and then also a USB 2 as well for the USB 2 port, and then there's the network jump there. So let's follow the instructions, which look like this. So open them up, and the first thing it tells you is be careful when handling the parts. It's not our responsibility for any damage caused in use. Warning, please make sure that there is no micro SD inserted before assembling. And then it talks about the 2.4G Wi-Fi might be affected by the environment, and USB 3 recommended use is 5G Wi-Fi or wired connection to the network. There's something for you to know about. And then it also mentions to go get the shutdown scripts, which I'll put the link in the description, but basically just follow the links that are on there. And then there's a switch that you have to flick, and it makes the default is off, and basically you've got to turn it to on, because you probably want to be able to do the safe shutdown. Why they even have that, I'm not too sure, because why wouldn't you? But yes, as you can see, I've already flicked it to on. Make sure you do that too. So let's do the next step, which is the thermal pads and applying them to the different areas on here. So let's make sure we've got the Pi 4 the right way around compared to the diagram. And then we've got the thermal pads. Let's tip out all the screws and everything here. Just off shot, but let's drag them into shot. Right, so we've got the thermal pads, and we need to put them on these two chips. Now, I think I'll pause the video at this point and then just apply them. Now, one thing I do want to point out with these thermal pads that are on here is that there's plastic on both sides of them, so just make sure that you have. I'm not thinking you're stupid, but you know, we all make mistakes. Also with this pack though, as I said before, we got some shims. I'm not too sure that all packs come with the HDMI adapter or the shims, but let's mess around and get the shims on there as well. Now these are quite big shims for where we're sticking them, but we need to get them on there. I'm just trying to mess around and get the bits of sticky protector on the bottom off. So again, I'll mess around and do that off camera. Okay, so I have messed around, I've put the shim in. It's upside down to us at the moment, but it's basically it's off center, just to make sure that it's not touching anything else around it. I think they've given you two shims thinking that you'll put them onto the chips, but of course that's a waste of time. Put them on the main chips, because the fan, which will be fitting later, fits there, and otherwise there just isn't the space for it. I did try to fit the other shim there or on top of the Wi-Fi bit, but again, either the fan gets in the way or there just isn't enough space to actually put this shim. So anyway, let's fight and argue with this now so that we get the Pi 4 in there. In the instructions it points out that you've got to get the USB 1 and the USB 3 in certain ports on here, so the top port and the bottom port. So we might also do that while it's still sort of floating about. So top USB, bottom USB, and this is the bit from previous experience I know you've got to sort of argue with it. It is possible. There we go. And now it's nicely sat there. This sometimes seems to pop out, so you make sure, quite frankly, make sure it's in the bigger port first, and then argue with it again and get it to fit in. There we go. And that's that done. Making sure that the switch that's there is still in the on position. So that's that bit, and then we have to take this kind of connector and we need to push that so it's in the far end and it's the right way around. So the arrow needs to be pointing out of the case, and then we need to line it up so it's resting on the last pins there, and that's that done. And we can flatten that down a bit. And then we get hold of our fan and we plug the fan in this little connector over here, this one, making sure that the pins are the right way around and everything. So black goes off to the left, I believe. This is fiddly as well. There we go. Yep, so black is off to the left, and then we rest the fan down. And we push down and we make sure that it's not touching the shim, the shim, which it isn't. So it just about fits. Looking at the instructions, it makes out that it goes to this area, and for whatever reason they've got a second area and they've gone and put the port there, so the wire is a bit of a stretch, but it does make it. Hence why I think it's maybe a bit of a better idea to plug it in first before putting the fan down. And then what we need to do is actually, what I think we need to do is screw it down. So we need some B screws, so it'll be these black ones. Put them there and then we screw them in. Not going all the way down at first on either side. You know, do a little bit, then a bit more on the other one, and a bit more, and so on. And really all we're really doing with this is to make sure that the fan doesn't start rattling around from in here. So you're not driving it all the way in, so when it seems firm, that's fine. And then we move on to step 6, and now it talks about that we have to put the lid on, and the lid, this USB goes into the top USB 3 port of there, so that's resting there now, and then we close it all down. So I want to make sure that everything's fine. So we hold it down and then we get the 6 long screws and drop them in. And again, I'll do this off camera because I'm not going to bore you doing all 6 screws. So that was fun. You might want to get yourself a slightly better screwdriver. I have made it possible, but it was a bit fiddly. As I said, do opposing corners, make sure they're all the way down. You might have to actually squeeze the case together a little bit to make sure that it's getting there. And I think that one still needs to go down a little bit. There we go. Yeah, the bottom left one still needed a bit. Anyway, so that's that done. We now move on to the SSD. So we've got the SSD. As you can see, I've already placed it inside. That's easy enough. Just be careful at the back, you know, sort of slide the bottom on and then push backwards to make it click into place. And then you've still got your 4 little screws here that make sense on where they go. So 2 short flat ones go there, and then little ones go in. Okay, put all the screws in. Open up the flap, put it in right on in there. Now, most of the time you're going to be booting from a micro SD card. At least you used to. If you haven't already, you need to update your Pi so that it will boot from USB. I'll put a link in the description. By all means, go subscribe to them and everything like that. But they're going to explain to you how to do it. I'm not going to be doing it in this video because otherwise it would be even longer than it already is. But what I have got on my SSD is a wonderful package that you can get. Just, you know, search for Pi 4 1 TB. I'm sure you'll come across it, and you'll end up with the same package that I've already got on here. Now, with all of that, I'm going to plug this in and let's get going with it. So I've booted it up. I've got my SNK Neo Geo plugged in, as you can see from the white cable, this thing here. Right, so let's transition across, and then you can see this. So we've got 3DO, we've got Amiga CD32, Amstrad CPC, Apple II, Arcade Classics, Atari 2600, Atari 5200, Atari 7800, Atari 800, Atari Jaguar, Atari Lynx, Atari ST, Atmos Wave, Commodore 64, a Fairchild, a Radio Shack TRS-80, a ColecoVision, Daphne, Dragon 32, Dreamcast, Family Computer, you know, a Famicom, Famicom with a disk system, Game & Watch, Game Gear with hacks, Game Boy, a Game Boy with hacks, a Game Boy Advance, a Game Boy Advance with hacks, Game Boy Color, I don't know, Intellivision, Kodi, so media player, Sega Mark III, Sega Master System, Sega Genesis / Mega Drive, Sega Genesis hacks, also Mega Drive. Oh, there we go, we've got Mega Drive as well as. Oh, okay. MSX, MSX2, Nintendo 64, Naomi, Nintendo DS, Neo Geo system, so that'll be interesting to say that I've got the SNK Neo Geo CD, Entertainment System, Nintendo Entertainment System with hacks, Neo Geo Pocket, Neo Geo Pocket Color, Open Bore, what's that? Oric, PC Games, PC Engine with CD-ROM, PCFX, Pixels, ports, power for the system I am assuming, PSP Minis, PlayStation 1, some options, Stellar View? Don't know what that is. Sega Saturn, Scum VM, Genesis 32, you know, Mega Drive 32X thing, Sega CD, Super Famicom, so Super Nintendo? Oh, I don't know. Sega SG-1000, Super Nintendo with hacks, Super Nintendo CD. Okay. Some Fabi. What's that? That's something I have to learn. Steam. I'm not too sure about that. Super Graphics, TurboGrafx CD, TurboGrafx 16, Vectrix, Philips Video Pack, Virtual Boy, WonderSwan Color, an X1, a Sharp 68000, a Z Machine, ZX Spectrum, Atari Classics, Baseball, Basketball, Batman, Boxing, Beat 'em Ups, Capcom, Castlevania, Cave, Contra, CP System 2, CP System 3, Data East Classics, Donkey Kong, Final Fantasy, Fishing, Football, American Football, Gauntlet, Hockey, Hulk, Indiana Jones, IREM Classics, Jalco, what's that? No, not Jalco, Jelco. Someone tell me how to pronounce that, please. 007, Kaneko, Konami, Light Gun Games, which I'm looking forward to because I do have a light gun now. Super Mario, Mega Man, Metal Slug, Metroid, Midway Classics, Mortal Kombat, Namco Classics, Nintendo Classics, Batman, Psycho, did I pronounce that one? Raising, Robocop, Sega Classics, The Simpsons, Skateboarding, SNK Classics, Soccer, Sonic, Space Invaders, Spider-Man, Star Trek, Star Wars, Street Fighter, Taito Classics, Terminator, Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles, Vector Graphic Games, Williams Classics, Wrestling, X-Men, Zelda, Collections, All Games, Favorites, Last Played, and back to 3DO. Whoa! Okay, so I'm not going to show what all this looks like for obvious reasons, but for most of what I've played so far, everything's played perfectly fine. I'm sure there's going to be the odd game or the odd system where I haven't actually played yet that isn't quite right, down to either the speed of the Pi 4 or down to the emulation for it. But this whole kit and caboodle, time it's all been put together, does cost a fair bit compared to other systems you can get, but it does give you a vast amount to play around with, and you know, like a kid in a candy shop, as they say, because there's just so much to start playing with. Obviously some of these systems I've got is the originals. Other items, other systems, I will never be able to get the true system because it's far too expensive to get now. I hope this has been of some interest and give you an idea what you can do with a Pi 4. As always, happy gaming!